And so we're going to begin today. Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing okay. We're gonna get right into tonight's lecture. So I had I guess you would say it was a debate this morning, a debate this afternoon with Carlos Miller from Photography is Not a Crime. Have you guys ever heard of that publication before? It's called Photography is Not a Crime. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing today? It's nice to see everybody. What's going on? Who's in the room? Who's in the room? Let's figure that out first. So I do have to correct something that I have been misspeaking on. Actually, I don't know how I got this information, but we're gonna get into that in a second. Thank you, appreciate it. Someone just, I have 3 small shirts left. Someone just bought one of the 3 smalls. I have 2 smalls left, and then I'm gonna replenish my shirt supply. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. How are you? So the topic of tonight's conversation is going to be marijuana and why is marijuana illegal? How come marijuana is illegal? If anybody wants to know, that answer, and it's not a simple answer. It's really not a simple answer. Now I had an extraordinarily heated conversation today. Extraordinarily heated. With a guy named Carlos Miller from Photography is Not a Crime. Maybe you guys have heard of that publication, Carlos Miller. I have nothing but gratitude for what Carlos Miller has done with his platform. He does have a platform called Photography is Not a Crime. If you guys are not a subscriber to Photography is Not a Crime, I would highly recommend that you subscribe to Carlos Miller's blog. I believe, I'm not sure if it's on Maven Media. Where's everybody from? Let's just get a barometer real quick. Where's everybody from? Just type right down in here. David, I know where you're from. David's from Santa Monica, California. Where's everybody from right now? Can anybody tell me where you guys are from? Just type it right down here in the comment section. If you're watching this on YouTube later, just type right down here where you guys are watching from so that I understand where everybody's from. There's Oregon, the Utah. Good to see you, Utah. Okay, good. We're getting right along the lines here. We're getting right along the lines. Sweden is in the house. Good to see you, Michigan. Washington. Hello, everybody. How's everybody? Connecticut's in the house. Nice to see Connecticut. Nice to see you guys. Now, do me a favor. Reach up and just tap that like button. You see that little thumbs up there? Just reach up and hit that like button right there. Just go like it. I love it. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. And so, yeah, so we're going to learn some stuff today, and there's going to be a lot of stuff on the poster today that we're going to go over. We're going to go over a lot of the stuff on, I have another short coming out tomorrow with Izzo. Izzo was a cop who admitted that police have quotas. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that in a second. But good evening, Ryan. How are you? Good evening. How's everybody doing? I took a power nap before I came on today, and so now I kind of wanted to jump right into this. So let's just take a real quick poll. Stephanie London, good to see you. Stephanie Michael, hello, good to see you guys. Okay, and then I'm gonna jump right into it, guys. And as you know, once I begin, I'm not gonna take a lot of breaks. I don't really stop once I start. And so now I'm gonna I have some pages open here, just that are public pages that everybody can take a look at. And so if you want, Stephanie, you can look up the breakup of Standard Oil. There's another blog that I'm going to be reading from tonight, and I believe this gentleman, it's called everything.explained.today, Harry J. Anslinger. Everything.explained.today, Harry J. Anslinger. And that's one of the posts we're going to be going over. And then Martha Dennison Anslinger, we're going to be talking about her tonight. We're going to be talking about the breakup of Standard Oil. That's a big one. Where is Henry? We just have one more to look up here. That I don't have his information just right off the top of my. I don't have his information just right off the top of my head, and so I always like to make sure that everything that I say, I don't want to say anything wrong. As you guys know, I'm a big proponent on not saying things that are incorrect. When you say things that are incorrect, it makes me upset. So if I say things that are incorrect, I need you guys to, anybody who corrects me, I will send you guys a free ebook and a free poster. I'll send it to you anyway, just so you know. People who can buy it, thank you so much. I will do a sales thing here in a second, try to sell some books. Okay, so we're gonna go Henry Ford. Okay. Okie dokie. Okay. And now we're just going to jump right into it today. Okay, real quick poll. Let's take a real quick poll. So how many minutes are we in here? We're at 8 minutes in. So if you guys want to take a note of that and put it in the comment section, we can begin at 8 minutes in if you guys like to. If you're watching this on YouTube, please start your viewing at 8 minutes and we're going to jump right into it. So let's take a real quick poll. How many people here think marijuana was criminalized because of racism? Can anybody answer that question? How many people in this room right here, of the 35 people here, how many people here think marijuana was criminalized because of racism? Do you think that marijuana was criminalized because of racism? Anybody? Just go ahead and type it in. Just go ahead, 8 minutes start, appreciate that. Okay. Try it again, Mild. Try it again. And you can always hit me on Instagram, by the way. Instagram's a real way to reach me. So was marijuana criminalized because of racism? I'm not saying the actual usage of the criminality was let me be a little bit more clear. So was marijuana criminalized to just arrest black people? Is that why marijuana was criminalized? Is that why cannabis was criminalized? And I'm reading the answer. I'm reading the answers. Capitalism. But specifically, which industries? So now we're going to have to take a couple steps back here. We're going to take a couple steps back. And I'm just going to make sure that, because I do have some information, I didn't do a whole deep dive today on too much information because I already know the information. And so 1839, okay, 1937. So there's going to be some things here that twist and turn oil and paper. Good. Okay, so remember, every time we talk about the laws in our country and the history of our country, we always have to take 2 steps back to go 1 step forward, as you guys are all well aware. You always have to go 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. And so you have to understand that in 1839, my lights are almost set here. This man right here is named John D. Rockafeller. John D. Rockafeller. Does everybody know who that is? Does everybody know who John D. Rockafeller is? Does everybody know who John D. Rockafeller is? John D. Rockafeller is going to be born in 1839. 1839, John D. Rockafeller is born. He's going to start a company called Standard Oil. Have you guys heard of that company before? He's going to start a company called Standard Oil in 1863. So John D. Rockafeller is going to be one of the richest men in the world for a long time. He's as rich as Mark Zuckerberg. He's as rich as Bill Gates. He's as rich as Elon Musk for his time period. And you know, different people are going to argue that different guys were richer during different times. But I'm talking about when he's born in 1839, when he starts Standard Oil in 1863. So 1863, what's going on in 1863? Anybody? What's going on in 1863? What's going on in 1863? Can anybody tell me what is happening in America in 1863? The Civil War. The Civil War begins in 1861. John D. Rockefeller starts the Standard Oil Company in 1863. So he starts an oil company during a time when everything in America is going crazy. It's going crazy. The Americans and the entire culture war going on in 1863 is a gigantic fight. There's a huge fight going on. It's gigantuous. And so John D. Rockefeller is born in 1836, and then by 1863, he starts this company called Standard Oil. So that means he has 2 to 5 years, depending on exactly where he started it. Let's just get right into it. And so Rockefeller's born in a large, poor family in upstate New York. He moved several times, eventually settling in Cleveland, Ohio. And if you guys know anything about Ohio, Ohio is the breeding ground for corruption. As a matter of fact, my friend Justice, he just sent me a link the other day of some corrupt police. They're investigating them. And so when he begins, what he's going to do is he becomes an assistant bookkeeper at 16, and he goes on with several partnerships, and then he's concentrating on oil refining. And Rockefeller founded it. So now this one says 1870, but I know that he started the company in 1863. I already know that because I've read deeply into what Rockefeller did and how he did it. And so some things on some websites are going to be incorrect, but that's just the way it is. So then Now he runs Standard Oil from 1863 until 1911, when Standard Oil is broken up because of antitrust laws. Because of antitrust laws, because J.D. Rockefeller has a complete and utter monopoly on the energy output in America. And so you start to say, well, how come? Why would you want to break up a company that is providing all the oil for everyone? Because he becomes a billionaire with I think he has like something like 2% of the entire world's money. John D. Rockefeller does. And so he works with a guy named Vanderbilt. Maybe he works, actually he doesn't work with Vanderbilt. He works with his children, because Vanderbilt's going to die in, he's going to die in 1847. Someone can correct me on that. Vanderbilt's going to die in 1850, 1847. Remember, I make a lot of mistakes on years, so I want you guys to make sure that you truly, truly take a look at every single thing I say, especially when it comes to a year, because I want to be correct and factual more than I want to be right. I want to be truthful instead of me being right. That's not the most important thing to me. The most important thing is that together, unified, we are right. So then when we get into the breakup here, I'm just going to go with what I know here, because I'm just going to shoot off the hip here. So now here's the thing. Here's the guys that really create this incredible what would you say, an association to ensure that hemp can never ever compete with the fossil fuel industry, and the fossil fuel industry that's going to be still ran by the subsidiaries of Standard Oil, and make sure that the newspaper industry led by William Randolph Hearst is not going to have any competition. And so in the 1930s is when they're really running a bunch of ads and making movies and talking about how marijuana will turn your child into an axe murderer. And this is the truth. This really is the truth. And so when you get into it, when you really get into the nuts and the bolts of it, you start to understand. So now when you take a look at this here, you see the prison industry here. This prison industry is going to be created because of the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911. Do you see that right there? Do you see this line right here? This is the prison industry. And then when it comes back here, it goes all the way back here to the 1930s. And so just, what do I always say? When we're going to talk about the current affairs, when we're going to talk about anything that's law or anything that is going on in the United States of America, we have to go 2 or 3 steps back to get to the actual problem, where things actually became a problem. Things for us in America today were not caused by us. The things that are problems today were started by Richard Nixon here, by Ronald Reagan here. And so what are we? This is 1968, 1971, 1980. So that, how many years back is that? 1980 is 52 years ago. And so when you take a look at the problems that we have currently today, you're going back 50 years for you and I to discuss the problems we have today. What's one of the biggest lobbies in Capitol Hill today? The for-profit prison industry started by Ronald Reagan. I mean, these are just simple facts. So now when you talk about the prison industrial complex being created, you have to go back to the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, and the 1930s. Is anybody familiar with the LaGuardia report? I sent out the LaGuardia report to maybe 6 people today, as a matter of fact. I sent off a bunch of free posters and ebooks today to some veterans who sent me an email. I sent off free posters to some folks who are on a fixed income. I sent off a bunch of posters today, digital posters for people who see the poster over here. This exact same step repeat is in that poster form right there. And I sent off maybe, I don't know, 12 or 14 today. I can't remember. I just put them all on one and then I send them out. And sometimes you have to ask for permissions to open them up through my Google Drive, and that's perfectly fine. So I don't mind one bit sending it out to you guys. If you guys don't have the money to buy it, I send out the digital version entirely for free. I can't send out the hard copy ones, so I do appreciate that. So now let's get into some facts, and I just have, I really don't even need it. I really just don't even need it. I already know the information, so I'm just going to teach you guys exactly what I know. I don't have to look up anything. So Harry Anslinger, if my years are a little messed up, then just go ahead and correct me so I can send off more free ebooks and posters when you correct me. So Harry Anslinger here, he's going to be born in 1892. He's going to be born in 1892 in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That's where he's going to be born. So now if you take a step back and you find out, we have to do a slight biography on Harry before we can actually move forward. We have to do a slight biography on John D. Rockafeller before we can move forward. We have to do a slight biography on Lamont DuPont II. It's Lamont DuPont II. We have to do a very slight biography. M Media, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate you supporting what we're doing. I really do. And then we're going to talk about William Randolph Hearst, and we're going to have to take a couple of steps back to understand exactly what these people did that have decimated and created the police state, prison state, death state that we live in today. We live in an absolute death state. So just a real quick poll here. Does anybody know the number one reason why someone is arrested today? Does anybody know the number one reason why someone is arrested today? Does anybody know the number one reason? What's the number one reason why a cop arrests someone in America today? Can anybody tell me that? Lamont DuPont, 1880 to 1952. That's exactly correct. Snakes Pliskin, good to see you. Can anybody tell me the number one reason? But not just drugs, specifically which drug and why? Mary Jane, that's right. Because all the cop has to say is that he smells marijuana and you can be arrested. Just because the cop says that he smells marijuana. And let me ask you a question. Who can prove or disprove that that cop smelled marijuana? Who can prove it or disprove it? Who can prove it or disprove it? Anybody? Anybody? Only the cop can. And that ties directly to Terry versus Ohio. He can say, I was suspicious that you had marijuana. And then what happens? Your entire life is ruined, and everything that you've done with your situation, whether your car is going to get impounded, you're going to get strip searched, you're going to go to the jail. And so the cop is the only person this ties to Terry. And so Harry Anslinger is going to be born in 1892. And then so if you just count the years forward here, 1892, we're going to go to 1902, and then we're going to get to 1912. So what's going on in America in 1912? Can anybody tell me what's going on in America in 1912? Harry Anslinger is 20 years old in 1912. What's going on in the United States? What's going on in the United States? What's happening in America in 1912? What's going on? There is a world war going on that we are not involved in. I'm not sure if you guys know that or not. And so we're watching this world war from afar. And so the United States is about to go into war. We're about to go into World War. And so then from 1914 to 1918, we're going to be in World War I. And who's going to be in World War? Who's going to be in there? Harry J. Anslinger. Harry J. Anslinger is going to go, we're talking about 1912, not 1812. So in 1912, Harry Anslinger is preparing to go to war. And so now what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? So then in 1914, where is Harry Anslinger stationed? Where does Harry Anslinger get stationed? He gets stationed at The Hague in the Netherlands. Did you guys know that? So when World War I breaks out, Harry Anslinger doesn't go into war as a troop. He goes into war as a spy. He goes and learns German, and then he's going to enter into World War I, and he's going to be a double agent. He's going to be an agent for the American government, and he's going to infiltrate the German army. I'm not sure if any of you guys knew that or not, but that's just a simple fact of Harry Anslinger. And so then 1912, 1914, the war gets going in full burst. And then Harry Anslinger is going to be in war from 1914 until 1918. And this is, which by the way, I quit smoking marijuana. I quit smoking weed because I travel. Yeah, you guys reach up and just tap that like button if you would for me, please. Just reach up and tap that like button for me. Just everybody take your finger right here and just reach up, and I don't know where the like button is on yours. Maybe it's down there, maybe it's up there. For me, the like button is right up there. But you guys can reach up and you can hit that like button if you would, pretty please, with cherries and sugar on top. So I do have to correct myself on some things I've been saying, because when we looked it up, what we found was that Harry didn't marry the daughter of Andrew Mellon. Harry married the daughter of Harry Denniston. Denniston was a judge, and she was the niece of Harry Anslinger. So just a little bit of a correction there, just a little bit of correction. And so what's going to happen here is when he starts to go to the war, when he comes back in 1918, 1919, he's going to go right into policing. He's going to go right into drug enforcement. He's going to go right into enforcing that you can't run drugs across the Caribbean. Harry Anslinger is going to be a cop from the time he's 14 until the time he dies in 1975. And Harry Anslinger is deeply involved with these gentlemen who are Lamont DuPont, and William Randolph Hearst, Andrew Mellon, and John D. Rockafeller. He's deeply, deeply involved. He's deeply involved. I don't know why people aren't getting the notifications, but I just know that you knew about it. So now there's a couple of things that are going to happen here that we have to take a look at that are essential for you to understand that the big pharmaceutical companies have always worked against us. The big pharma companies are not our friends. They're our enemy. So when you see these pharmaceutical companies, sponsored by Pfizer, sponsored by Moderna, sponsored by J&J, these are not our friends. These aren't some altruistic people who have built a company and they just want to do things great for Americans. Not at all. The big pharmaceutical companies since the beginning have worked against us. And so now right here, when Standard Oil is broken up, we already said Harry Anslinger's 19 years old. Harry Anslinger's 19 when Standard Oil is broken up. And then I do have a tiny little piece right here about the Standard Oil breakup, and I'm just going to read it so that you guys understand. Standard Oil was an American oil production, transporting, refining, marketing, and started in 1870, which was really 1863. It's an error there. I know that for a fact. And so it created Standard Oil and the oil products market initially through horizontal integration of the refining sector. Then in later years, vertical integration. So the company was an innovator in development of the business trust. The Standard Oil Trust streamlined production and logistics, lowered cost, and undercut competitors. Trust-busting critics accused Standard Oil of using aggressive practices, pricing to destroy competitors and form a monopoly that threatened other businesses. Rockefeller ran the company as the chairman until his retirement in 1897. He remained the main shareholder until 1911, with the dilution of the Standard Oil Trust into 34 smaller corporations. And that's another a slight error that I've been talking about. And so Rockefeller became the richest person in modern history, and the individuals who then took a bigger success, the successors of the Standard Oil Company were Chevron, ExxonMobil, Amco, Marathon Petroleum, and those are still the companies that own them today. So by 1882, his top advisor, John Dustin Archbold, from 1896, Rockefeller disengaged from business to concentrate on philanthropy, leaving Archibald in control. However, he always had a keen eye on exactly what he was doing and how it was going. And his brother, William Rockefeller, Harry Flagler, and chemist Samuel Andrews' silent partner, Stephen Harkins, and Oliver Burr Jennings, who had married the sister of William Rockefeller's wife. So do you see that? When you have William Burr Jennings, and he's going to marry the sister of John D. Rockefeller, and John D. Rockefeller is going to marry the sister of Oliver Burr Jennings' wife. And so you have this deeply tied family unit to big capital. And so they have an amazing vested interest in making sure that there's going to be no competitors for the fossil fuel industry. And you have to understand that. This is one of the main things that people just don't get, that when Rockefeller started his company, what he's doing is he's absolutely creating corporations that are antitrust, that work against the people, that make it so that only a very select few people get the money at the top. Do you understand that? And what are we dealing with today? The exact same thing. How many people are investors in Pfizer? How many people? How many people have a stake in Pfizer? How many people here? How many people have a stake in Pfizer? Anybody? Does anybody who here has a stake in Pfizer? Right, absolutely none of us. Absolutely none of us. So now as we move forward here, what's going to happen? This is really, really sad. So I want you guys to follow the bouncing ball, because I'm going to give you a lot of different pieces that your brain is going to put together for you later. You may not understand everything I'm saying right now. You may not understand all the little tiny micro points of data, but the data I'm going to put in your brain right now, eventually with enough data points, your brain will put them together. So I want you guys to really pay close attention here as we move down the timeline, because I'm going to give you a bunch of pieces of information right now. All right, are you ready? So if you guys want to jot this down, if you got a pencil and paper, write this down. If you're sitting by your computer, type it in. Hopefully the super chat shows up, or I don't know what it's called, chat. Hopefully the live chat shows up. Hopefully you guys get to see it later. I don't know what's going on. Someone can walk me through it. So now, when Standard Oil is broken up into 34 different companies, who's the Standard Oil broken up to? Who is it? Now, they're going to give you corporate names, but those companies are broken up to the most powerful people in America. The richest, whitest, most dominant families in America are now going to own large chunks of the Standard Oil Corporation. Standard Oil created 2% of the entire world's economy. So now remember, if you get one tiny sliver of 2% of the entire world's economy, you are rich beyond belief. I'm talking you are so rich, it's incredible. And so now what's going to happen here is there's going to be a series of things that happen. So World War I is going to break out in 1914, so no one has their eye on the ball. No one's watching what's going on. And I just gave you a list of the associates who are working with John D. Rockafeller, including his brother-in-law, who's married his wife's sister, and then you have his legitimate brother who's involved in the oil industry as well. And so in 1911, when Standard Oil is broken up, it's just 3 years later that the Harrison Act is passed. And the Harrison Act is to try to take on the opioid epidemic, or what do they call it back then? It was still called opioids, but it was called something else. It was called Dilaudid. It was called Dilaudid. Is that what it's called? I'm pretty sure it was. And heroin. And they had this. We in America had a major drug problem when it came to opioids in 1914. And so with the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911, now you have a bunch of rich families who look over across and look at Mexico, and there's a Mexican hemp. They look over at India, and there's Indian hemp. And so they say, these things are going to be able to compete with the fossil fuel industry. And so then in 1914, the layer cake of elitists controlling the government, who control the cops, who control the people. Elitists control the government, and the government controls the cops, and the cops control the people. It's always a layer cake. It's always a layer cake, and we are on the bottom layer. So we often just get smushed. Right? And so here's what happens. 1914 Harrison Act, they add cannabis to the list of banned products that you have to get a prescription from your doctor. And so 1914, when this is passed, World War I is starting to rage here. And so no one's really paying attention that the pharmaceutical companies are slowly taking over our government. Does it sound familiar? 1914, 2014, 2022 today. Everything's on a 100-year, it goes on average between 55 and 110 year cycle. So is it amazing that the pharmaceutical companies take over the legislation of the federal government in 1914? Not even kind of, not even sort of. And that's exactly the problem we're facing today, is we have big pharmaceuticals that have taken over our government. I just saw that fool go on TV, on YouTube the other day. I saw him on a video saying, you need to go get the Pfizer shot. You need to go get the Pfizer pill. And that's the commander-in-chief, the leader of America. I've never seen a president of the United States sit up there and so blatantly push a private corporation, besides the Federal Reserve. So 1914, the Harrison Act is going to pass. And then from 1914 to 1918, you're going to be in World War I. So then this is a very important factor. So Harry Anslinger, he heads over to The Hague in the Netherlands, and then his war career, maybe someone knows about it. I haven't read, there's a book on Harry Anslinger that I haven't read yet, just because I didn't want to be influenced by someone else's writing. I didn't want to regurgitate their writing, and so I haven't read it yet. However, there's a really comprehensive book written by a guy that I saw on the Rogan show, and he has a lot of facts on this too. And so what's going to happen here is Harry Anslinger is going to be over at The Hague. And what happens at The Hague from 1914 to 1918 when Harry Anslinger is over there? There's this new organization that's forming in the Netherlands. And what's it called? It's called the World Health Organization. Maybe you've heard of this organization before? The World Health Organization. And it's going to be right there in the Netherlands. And Harry Anslinger is 22 years old. And so he makes friends with all these people, all these guys who are starting the World Health Organization. Okay, this is an important fact. It's going to come back in a minute. So now, when it gets to 1919, you have the Red Summer of 1919. You have all those black troops coming back from World War I. They're going to fight for their rights. They're going to teach other black people how to fight for their rights. And so then in 1920, what's going to happen is Prohibition. And as you guys know, Prohibition is the invention of the modern day penal system, when we go from 40,000 people in prison to 200,000 people in prison in just 13, 14 years. It's an absolutely incredible amount of people who are in prison, because you can't hang the cops, you can't hang the Irish, you can't hang the Italians. And so we build the industrial prison complex. And the prison complex here goes back here. I started in 1865, but then as we come back here and we get to 1920, what you're looking at is an industrial prison complex that just soars here because of Prohibition. Woodrow Wilson won the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm not sure if you guys know that or not. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's going to veto Prohibition, also called the Volstead Act, but it's going to create the prison industrial complex that we use today. And this is going to tie directly into Harry Anslinger criminalizing drugs. And so right here, when we end Prohibition in 1933, in 1933, right here, Prohibition comes to an end with the 21st Amendment, signed into law by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This gentleman here, he's gonna sign the end of Prohibition in 1933. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, another conversation. So now, right here in 1934, not the National Firearms Act, you're going to call the Uniform State Narcotic Act. The Uniform State Narcotic Act. If you guys want to type that in, you're more than welcome to type that in. The Uniform State Narcotics Act is going to be created by guess who? By guess who? By Harry Anslinger. By Harry Anslinger. Because he's going to be positioned as the head of the Federal Narcotics Agency in 1930. In 1930, Harry Anslinger is going to be appointed. He doesn't apply for the job. If you'd ever notice, every time someone is appointed in our country, it ruins our country. When you appoint someone to a position of ultimate power, they use that power to enrich their own family. And that's why I was trying to show you guys the association with John D. Rockefeller and his own family members. Do you follow? Do you follow what I'm saying to you? Every time you appoint someone or someone has a position of absolute power, they use that power to enrich themselves and enrich their family members. And that's what happens. That's why I'm giving you lots of points of data here so that you can start to figure it out on your own, so that you'll look it up and you'll start to learn the information that I'm teaching. So, the 1934 Uniform State Narcotics Act is going to make it, I'm sorry it's not on this board, maybe it's on this poster over here. No, it's not on that one either. I'm sorry, guys. I'll get it on the next poster. But you guys are more than welcome to take a little sticky pad and put it on your own poster. If I have sent you guys out a poster, make sure you guys get this on there. The Uniform State Narcotic Act passed in 1934. But however, what's going on in America at the end of Prohibition? The states themselves, each state is like its own little country. And by the way, I want to give a big long lecture on Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I've been just absorbing more and more information. So remind me to get onto that, and I will another time. But in 1934, you're going to get the Uniform State Narcotic Act, and that's going to be created by Harry Anslinger, who's appointed the head of the Federal Narcotics Agency. This is later going to become what? It's going to be called what? Anybody? What's the Federal Narcotics Agency created in 1930 going to turn into? What's it going to turn into, anybody? What is it? I'll wait. I will wait. What's it going to turn into? Anybody? What's the Federal Narcotics Agency going to turn into? What's the name of it? What's the name of it going to be? Anybody? The Drug Enforcement Agency. Exactly correct. That's exactly correct. This is a tiny little blurb on Harry Anslinger. I'm not going to learn anything from there. So now the Federal Narcotics Agency, now called the DEA, that's exactly correct. The Federal Narcotics Agency is called the DEA. And I think Harry is going to run the Federal Narcotics Agency from 1930 until, is it 1972? Is it, because he dies in 75? I can't remember the exact year. 1965, I believe he runs it for 35 years, or I'm pretty sure it's 1965. No, because he does the single convention on narcotic drugs in 1961. And so he's going to retire. I can look it up. I'm not going to. And so now right here. Now, a couple things happen here that are just the biggest irony of all things. The biggest irony of everything that I'm talking about here is going to come to a head in 1937, because Harry's been appointed the head 1970. No, we got that. So I was actually looking for when when Harry Anslinger retired from the Federal Narcotics Agency. I believe it was either 65 or 72. I'm not sure. My brain doesn't do that great with years. And so now what we're looking at here is in 1934, the Uniform State Narcotic Act, but the actual states themselves are sick of throwing people in dungeons. You know, it's the leadership of the states. They're tired of throwing Irish and Italians in jail. They're sick of it. They're tired of it. They don't want to do it anymore. And so the Uniform State Narcotic Act that's pushed by Harry Anslinger, and I think I got a couple pictures of him over here, that's pushed by Harry Anslinger, they're like, you know what? We don't want to put this in. And then over time, every single different state begins to adopt the Uniform State Narcotic Act. And what is the Uniform State Narcotic Act? The Uniform State Narcotic Act is the enforcement arm of the 1914 Harrison Act that criminalizes you having a chemical if you didn't get a prescription from your doctor. If you're how do you say that? If you're legalized drug pusher, if you're legalized, 1962, thank you, Stephanie. So that was 32 years that he ran the Federal Narcotics Agency. So if your legalized drug pusher hasn't given you the right to get your drugs, if he hasn't written you a prescription, if you don't have the money to tell your doctor what prescription that you want, and what do we hear on pharmaceutical commercials all the time today? A pharmaceutical company will make a commercial and they'll say, hey, check out this new drug, Basil. I'm just making up a name here. And they'll go, tell your doctor that you want to try Basil. And Basil's a made-up name, so please don't take that to the bank here, right? So what do we hear all the time on these new pharmaceutical companies, on the commercials for these new pharmaceuticals? They say, tell your doctor that you want to use Basil. What are you talking about? The Harrison Act says that the doctor has to give you a prescription. But if you have the money and you have your legalized drug distributor, you can get your prescription signed from your doctor who you tell, hey, I want to try Basil. And so then you get a prescription, and then what does Basil do? The pharmaceutical company that's the drug that's being pushed by Pfizer, is they send out their representatives to every different doctor in town, and they go, hey, we're going to give you guys a grant to try this new Basil with your patients, and we're going to give you a bunch of freebies. And then they get a bunch of freebies for samples, and then they'll tell the doctor's office, oh yeah, by the way, the more Basil you sell, the more money we'll give you. Now, does Basil work for you? We don't know. But the pharmaceutical companies want the doctor to push it. The doctor's incentivized with money for him to push that chemical, and then you're pushed this chemical called Basil through commercials and then through your own doctor. That's why when people say, oh, I'm going to talk to my doctor about it, I'm going to go, well, who's funding him? Where's the money from your doctor coming? Who's giving your doctor the money? Who's funding your doctor today? Have any of you guys asked your doctor, hey, doc, do you have a grant from any pharmaceutical company? Do you have any pharmaceutical company that's giving you an allotment of drugs for you to sell them? And are you getting bonuses on those drugs being sold? The 1914 Harrison Act talks about you getting a prescription for your chemicals, but then it doesn't talk about, and there's no enforcement of it, if the pharmaceutical companies are going to get in trouble or have any kind of guidelines to push a certain drug through certain doctors' offices. And this is probably one of the most frustrating things about understanding how the laws were formed. It just makes me absolutely sick. I mean, yeah, someone just said OxyContin. Look how well that worked out. And everything goes back to the 1914 Harrison Act. If you don't think so, look it up right now. The 1914 Harrison Act is in effect today. The same law from 1914 is still... Now, you're going to have the 1970 Controlled Substance Act written by John Mitchell. The 1970 Controlled Substance Act. But once again, what is this going to talk about? The 1970 Controlled Substance Act is going to talk about the chemicals that are illegal for you to do. They're not going to talk about the pharmaceutical companies and any responsibility or restrictions or any kind of enforcement or should I say bureaucracy created to ensure that the big pharmaceutical companies that own the government have any kind of regulations put on them. Instead, John Mitchell, who's the Secretary of State for the Attorney General for Richard Nixon, he writes the 1970 Controlled Substance Act alone. He writes it alone. He's the guy in charge. So now, when you get to the 1930 Uniform Narcotic State Uniform Drug Act, this is going to create the criminality of you not using a piece of paper to get your pharmaceuticals or your drugs from a licensed pusher. From a licensed pusher. Your doctor could be a licensed pusher. Did you know that? And I can feel myself getting upset. Let me just keep my let me keep my calm here, because there's so many people that have their lives completely and utterly ruined. And my mother, I love my mom to death. She'll tell me, I'm going to talk to my doctor about it. And she'll get all a matter of fact, all boomerish. I'm going to talk to my doctor about that is what I'm going to do. Who's funding your doctor? Who's funding your doctor? Who's giving your doctor the money? And there's no legislation or regulation or limitation to what the doctor can be fed to give to you. And how good's that working out for America? It's not. It's not. It is not working out for the United States of America. Our drug problem has never been worse. We've never had more people addicted to opioids. And now fentanyl just killed my friend Casey Durkins. Casey Durkins died in 2021. I've known Casey for 15 years of my life. She died because she got some drugs that had fentanyl in them, and she died. She was my age. She was just 4 or 5 years younger than I was. And she died. Did that 1914 Harrison Act, did it protect my friend Casey? Did it? So, now right through here, this is all going to be called the law. We're coming to an end of the Lochner era here, 1937, 1938. And so now here's where we're going to have another like gigantic problem. We're going to have a gigantic problem with the Marijuana Tax Act created in 1937. And this is where the conglomerate of super elites truly bind together to create the propaganda and the lies that we're faced to live in today. As a matter of fact, I found it. I have the actual document. Here's the actual LaGuardia report. Can you guys see that? Is that mirrored? Can you guys read that? This is called the LaGuardia Report of 1944. You see that? This is a 4-year study on marijuana. But a couple things happen here that are a gigantic shift in the power dynamic from the silent generation. The silent generation is going to be John D. Rockafeller and Andrew Mellon. And what's going to happen in 1937 with the Marijuana Tax Act being passed is 2 people are going to die in 1930s. What their names are? Andrew Mellon and John D. Rockafeller. So you have the silent generation leaders who had all the money at the top. They're going to die. And now the greatest generation is going to come in and they're going to take control of those. And this is going to be the boomer generation coming into power. So it's going to be the greatest generation is going to pass the torch to the boomer generation. No, I'm so sorry. I misspoke on that. My mom's a boomer, so my grandfather was the greatest generation, and before that was the silent generation. So you're going to have the silent generation, which is going to be John D. And you guys can fact check me on this. I don't know everything. I just know what I've learned. So the silent generation is going to be John D. Rockafeller and Andrew Mellon. And then I have the LaGuardia report. If anybody doesn't have it, I have this in a PDF. I went through and I put there's pages on it now, so that when you guys want to discuss it, we can go to a specific page and we can read. If you guys want, we can read this together the next time I do a live. I can do an entire live devoted to reading the LaGuardia report because I've already gone through this and I've already read it. And when you get to the back of this, you're gonna okay. So I want to talk about the transfer of power. The transfer of power. Have you guys ever heard this before? When you have the money from one generation transfers to another generation. And we have to understand what that means and what that's going to do to the people who go from the silent generation to the greatest generation, who are going to take control of the power. And power corrupts absolutely. And so what happens when John D. Rockafeller and Andrew Mellon die, now what's going to happen is the power dynamic is going to slightly shift. The power dynamic is going to go from the John D. Rockefellers and the Andrew Mellons, and it's going to go down now into the DuPont family, into the William Randolph Hearst family. And so these guys and their heirs now are going to become the power in our country. And since John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Mellon are going to die, what's going to happen is this guy who's married the niece of Andrew Mellon, he's going to get into the inheritance chain of that money. And so now he's a police officer, but he's going to be a very rich police officer. As a matter of fact, I think he's listed as an actor. He's listed as an actor. And so you guys have to understand that. The power dynamic is going to shift here. Andrew Mellon is going to die in 1937. John D. Rockefeller is going to die in 1937. And so when you have all that money is going to transfer from the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. That money has to go somewhere. So where does it go? It goes into the hands of the heirs, of Harry Anslinger's heir, of Lamont DuPont's heirs, and of William Randolph Hearst's heirs. And so what's going to happen from 1920 until 1935, until 1920 to 1935, what's going to happen is the reason why he's listed as an actor is because he goes on camera. You can find clips of him all over. And he goes on camera and he demonizes marijuana. And what does he say? That marijuana will turn your kid into a killer, that you will become comatose from smoking marijuana. As a matter of fact, the way that the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act is initially passed is through a movie called Reefer Madness. I believe the production was in 1936. And so 1936, Reefer Madness is going to come out, and what it's going to do is it's going to create this picture, this image, that smoking marijuana is like smoking meth. that if you smoke marijuana, it's going to completely disorient you. It's going to disorient your family. It can go through your genes. It can make your DNA go crooked. You name it. They're going to come up with every single kind of excuse in the world as to why marijuana demonizes you. So what happens? So a lot of people start going to prison. Now, a lot of people, and I had a huge fight today. I'm talking, I had a fight of epic proportions today on a podcast, on a Zoom call with Carlos Miller of Photography is Not a Crime, a man I highly respect. And he started to fight with me about why the reason marijuana was criminalized. Now, knowing what you know here now, I just showed you guys the exact process of Standard Oil being broken up in 1911, the Harrison Act of 1914, and then from 1920 to 1934, you have the Uniform State Narcotic Act. 1930, you have the Marijuana Tax Act. Why are all of those things passed? All of those things are passed not because of racism. They're passed using racism, but they are not passed because of racism. Okay? Are you listening? You don't have to be a rocket scientist here. Pretend that I'm stupid and I'm just giving you data points. I'm a total moron. I can't do conceptual analysis. I have no idea how to figure out theory. I'm just a complete and utter moron. Not like I don't break down philosophy, not like I don't break down law theory. Okay, but I'm just dumb and you're the smart guy. You're gonna lead me, okay? You teach me real quick. And this is what just gets my dander going. Marijuana was not criminalized to arrest black people. It was used, black skin was used to create the criminality around marijuana. Brown skin, Mexican skin was used to create the criminality around marijuana. It was not criminalized because of racism. It was criminalized because Harry Anslinger and his partners in the fossil fuels, in the pharmaceuticals, in the newspaper, in the wood, in the energy business wanted to create a monopoly that would make sure that we banned hemp all through America. It was not criminalized because of racism. It was criminalized using racism, but it was not criminalized because of the color of someone's skin. That was the apparatus to get it criminalized. And we know this because you can get the transcripts from the speech Harry Anslinger makes on the congressional floor in 1937, where he says that marijuana makes darkies think that they're as good as white people. But for the love of God, Mr. Miller, Mr. Carlos Miller, I have the most respect for you. He was the original cop blocker, guys. You can't down Carlos Miller. He is an icon in cop blocking, in auditing. Carlos Miller is the original OG. Alibaba, dude, you are the Quan. I respect you to the highest levels. Now, allow me to educate you. I just explained to you the money, the transfer from the greatest generation from the silent generation to the greatest generation to the boomer generation. They didn't do that because of racism. It wasn't done because of racism. It was done because of money. So, what happens when someone dies? What happens when someone dies? Anybody? Anybody? I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the speak. I can't get into the comments and teach at the same time because I get a little bit distracted. And so it was based on money and power. Now, is marijuana and the smell of marijuana, does that target more people of color today? Yes, it does. If a white kid gets stopped by a cop and he's smoking marijuana and a black kid gets stopped by a cop, the black kid is 4 times more likely to go to jail than the white kid. These are facts. These are simple facts. So my conservative friends, you guys have to face it. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but the policing apparatus is pointed at people of color, and that's a fact. Our policing apparatus is racist, but they kill 3 times more white people than they do black people. Per capita, it's 1 out of every 12 black people has the opportunity to be shot by the cops. The opportunity, which is the wrong word, forgive me, that 1 out of 12 people could be victimized or attacked or shot by the police. So now as we move forward here. So now I want to stick with this question. What happens when Andrew Mellon dies? What happens when John D. Rockafeller dies is a transfer of wealth. A transfer of wealth. And so when you transfer wealth, is that racist or is that big capital? Is that big money? That's big money. That's big money. That's what that is. That's what it is. When you transfer wealth, that has nothing to do with you being racist or your family being racist. That has to do with ensuring that you're going to keep all of the money in your family. And I gave you the associates listed earlier in John D. Rockefeller's company. It's his brother, it's his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law marries his wife's sister. And so you have this disgusting, I don't want to say incested, but this disgusting cesspool of tyranny based on big capital being able to control the narrative of the pharmaceutical industry through the 1914 Harrison Act and through the legislature of creating the Marijuana Tax Act. Now, they used the color of people's skin to criminalize it, but that's not why it was criminalized at all whatsoever. And that's what I said today. I said it was not at all whatsoever because of the color of skin. The color of skin was used to criminalize it. And I had a really big fight today with this guy. So I just want to kind of get this out here. I want to get out in front of this because the idea that I don't understand that the policing apparatus is racist is incorrect. But the reason why cannabis is criminalized is because of hemp. Because who's in the hemp industry? Lamont DuPont's in the hemp industry. William Randolph Hearst is in the newspaper industry. John D. Rockefeller's brothers, sisters, cousins, and lovers are all involved in the fossil fuel industry. Lamont DuPont is creating this new thing called plastic. He doesn't want hemp to compete with plastic. Okay? Capitalism is not the problem. The problem is it's a capitalistic thing, but we have to tweak it so that we don't get screwed every single time. If you go into a communist or socialist state, we're looking at the end of the United States. And I've been battling people for 6 months now about communism and socialism because, look, I support you having the right to say that, but I don't think that that's the solution at all whatsoever. I think it'll ruin our country. It will absolutely ruin our country, and you guys have to understand that. You have to take a look at where the money goes, Lebowski. Follow the money. People don't give a shit about the color. Oh, dang it, there's a first curse word. Dang it, sorry, kids. So people don't give a crud about the color of your skin when it comes to their pocketbook. They care that they are allowed to make the most money and you don't get any of that money. That's what they care about. So, now what happens in 1937 when John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Mellon die, then Harry Anslinger is going to step up his effort to arrest more black people, targeting black people. And the reason why he targets black people after the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act is so that it gets in the front page of the newspapers. And this is where people who, like my friend, get indoctrinated in reading about Harry Anslinger, how he arrested all these black people through the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s for marijuana. But that's the front page of the newspaper. Who's being arrested? Black jazz musicians. And so this idea that Harry Anslinger criminalized marijuana to target black people was perpetuated by who? By William Randolph Hearst, who ran the newspaper business. He's the guy that publishes all of Harry Anslinger's arresting of black people for marijuana. And then they've demonized marijuana using reefer madness. They've demonized marijuana using reefer madness. So when William Randolph Hearst is putting on the front page of newspapers that Harry Anslinger is arresting black people, most of white America believes that Harry Anslinger is doing America a great service, that he's saving the children from becoming an axe murderer. They're making movies, literal full-on production of movies that show that if you smoke marijuana, it'll turn your kid into a comatose axe killer. It could turn your wife into a prostitute by one hit of marijuana. So when Harry Anslinger is arresting all these black people and then William Randolph Hearst is putting on the front page of the paper, America thinks Harry Anslinger is a freaking hero. He is celebrated from coast to coast in the United States. There are roving gangs of white boys that go around, and if they smell marijuana, they beat up or even lynch the people smoking marijuana. And often people are beat up and killed because they smell marijuana, and then the white boys go and beat them up and kill them because they just smelled marijuana and they were looking for blood to begin with. This guy is celebrated as a hero. And all the front page newspapers of black people and jazz musicians being arrested for marijuana, being celebrated, that's the propaganda that you know today. That Harry Anslinger criminalized marijuana to arrest black jazz musicians. No, 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 no. I openly reject it. It's not true. So, in 1940, Fiorella LaGuardia, I actually got this document out to show you guys today. Fiorella LaGuardia, he commissions a New York State Commission to do a 4-year study on marijuana, and it's called the LaGuardia Report. And the LaGuardia Report's going to come out in 1944. It's going to come out in 1944. And what does the LaGuardia Report say? What does the LaGuardia Report say? Anybody? What does this say? what this says is that marijuana, in the back of this, he gets multiple different schools and different doctors involved. And this says summary of conclusions. And then it says family and community ideologies. And then it says in here, findings of the women subjects of smoking marijuana. And then if you keep going back, Downey Will Temperament Test 1, the Downey Will Temperament Test 1 of smoking marijuana. The LaGuardia report, published in 1944, has an absolute ton of information in the back of it. When you read the actual tests, level of aptitude, aspiration tests in the back of the 1944 LaGuardia report right there. The frustration test right here in the back of the LaGuardia report. This information is still relevant today. This is still relevant today. All of this information in the LaGuardia report is relevant today. One of my friends in LA, one of my best friends in the world, he happens to be a gay guy. And what he said is he'll come to me and he'll say, and I make, you know, when you have good friends, you make fun of each other all the time. And so here in the back of the LaGuardia report, and this is going to be on page 49 right here. Sorry, the pagination is so small. I should make the page numbers a little bit bigger. But then it says right back here, the findings of the LaGuardia report. The actual findings, this comes out in 1944. So that's 7 years after the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. Bellevue Adult Intelligence Test General. The result in the Bellevue Adult Intelligence Test, which was administered to 60 subjects, 40 users, and 20 non-users, shown in tablet 5A, mental deterioration, studies on due to toxic, organics, or psychotic factors. Marijuana has no significant character changes in you. So my buddy will come and say, Chile, you know, I'm going through a hard time. I need to stop smoking marijuana. And I say to him, hey, buddy, listen, if you're having a hard time, maybe you should just take it easy on the other things in your life that are going on. Because if you actually read the LaGuardia report, it says in great detail that marijuana has no character changes. It doesn't affect you. Here's a summary of the entire report, and that's on page 45. Read it. This is an easy read. I read this in one day. This took me 1 day to read. 1 single day. I read this whole thing in 1 day. In a day. I read it in a day. 4-year study, I read in 1 day. That's how big it is. I read this in 1 day. So I'm just telling you, this is not a hard read. It's easy to read. You don't have to be super smart. Marijuana and eroticism. Marijuana and eroticism. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but there's been times in my life where I smoked marijuana and had my girlfriend. Marijuana and eroticism. And let me just tell you, I never wanted to become violent and hurt my girlfriend during interaction with intimate interactions. I never wanted to ever hurt my girlfriend because we had smoked marijuana. I smoked marijuana for 20 years. I just recently quit just because I don't want to be hounded by the cops who are actually, you know, they're going to actively target auditors and people who speak out against them. So there it is. I have that available for free. If you guys can't find the PDF online, I'll send it to you absolutely for free. You don't got to give me a dime. It'll be yours 100% for free. I should do a promo. Let me do a promo, and then I'm going to jump right back into it because I'm going to continue down the line of Harry Anslinger. This is the poster that I sell, you guys. It's on DeleteLawZ.com. Please go by and pick up my poster. If you can, I have a $25 version that is on DeleteLawZ with a Z.com. DeleteLawZ with a Z.com. And then you guys, if you learned absolutely anything from me today, pretty please, with cherries and sugar on top, go buy my cup of coffee fund and please buy me a cup of coffee. I actually have to actively ask to raise funds. There have been people who've been donating this last week, but I have not had an income for 2 months because of being deplatformed off of TikTok. I was making decent money on TikTok, but now I'm upside down. So if you guys would please go by, and if you learned anything at all, please go by and pick me up a cup of coffee. And oh, by the way, anybody who buys me a cup of coffee, as soon as I get your email address, I send you everything for free anyway. I send you the digital poster for free. I send you my ebook for free. I send you the LaGuardia report. I send you the Mullen Commission, the Wickersham Commission, the Knapp Commission. As soon as I get your email address, I send you everything I have without delay, because I don't give a crud if you buy my products. I care that you learn, that you read and you learn. It can't be one guy who knows the information or just a small number of us. As soon as, which by the way, M-Star Media, you're one of the only people I didn't get their email address. M-Star Media bought me a cup of coffee yesterday. I want to say thank you for literally just $3 cup of coffee. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You have no idea, because if I can get all 113 people in here to buy me a cup of coffee, that's enough money to buy the sound machine so you don't hear this echo anymore. Because there's still an echo in here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this thing called Assure, S-H-U-R. Listen, I'm not going to stop. When I run for governor of California, I'm going to have to ask people to send me money. I'm going to have to say, give me money to my campaign, or a fossil fuel company is going to give me the money, or a pharmaceutical company is going to give me the money, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take money from those piece of garbage organizations. I'm not going to take money from individual corporations who buy my candidacy. I will not take their money. I vow to you now, I will not take their money. I never will take their money. Because as soon as they buy my money, as soon as they give me their money, they buy my heart, they buy my will, they buy my resolution, they buy my mind. And I will not be sold. I will not be bought, I will not be sold, and I will not cheapen myself. And that's what every single politician does in the country. Every single politician in the country cheapens themselves, because instead of crowdsourcing money from people who actually listen and learn and understand the truth, they get money from the pharmaceutical companies. And it's been going on for decades. It's been going on for decades and decades and decades. So Harry's not done. Harry is not done. Harry's not done. He not only gets appointed to the head of the Federal Narcotics Agency, and then he creates the 1934 Uniform State Narcotic Act, which I'm going to put on the next poster. You guys can put it on there yourself. And so then what happens is Harry Anslinger he continues down this mission of criminalizing marijuana through the newspapers. I talked about this a moment ago. But what I want you guys to truly understand, that what they'll do is they'll go to a scene where there's a murder scene, and they'll plant marijuana on the scene. And they'll say, oh yeah, here's a murder scene, and this guy was smoking marijuana, and then he killed his wife and kids. This is a real story. I'm not making it up. They said that this guy killed his wife and children. He axe murdered them because he had been smoking marijuana. And William Randolph Hearst pushes that in the newspaper. In the front page of the newspaper, that a marijuana smoker had killed his wife and children with an axe. And so this happens all the way from the 1930s all the way up until 1960s. Because the LaGuardia report, in case you didn't know, the LaGuardia report, you know what Harry Anslinger does? Just so you know, the same report I was just showing you a moment ago, Harry Anslinger then goes and collects every single copy of it and burns it. And not only does he collect, because back then, remember, there's no dissemination of literature from me to you where I say, hey, just send me an email and I'll send you the LaGuardia report. It doesn't cost you anything. No. You have to get the actual documentation. So Harry Anslinger, with the help of the FBI, with the help of J. Edgar Hoover, and with the help of William Randolph Hearst, they collect every single copy. They collect every single copy of the LaGuardia report and they burn it. They destroy it. And then what they do is William Randolph Hearst starts a campaign in the newspaper saying that Figueroa LaGuardia is actually trying to kill your children. He's trying to kill your kids. This man is trying to kill your children and cause your wife to be a prostitute. He's trying to make it so that white women want to sleep with black guys. This man right here, he's a pimp. Did you know that? Did you know that this same thing I can give you for free today is demonized, and it's called propaganda and lies? When it was a 4-year study done by multiple different colleges and universities, multiple different professors, double-blind studies, just pisses me off beyond belief, because marijuana is the number one reason why someone gets arrested today. So let's go back in time a little bit. 1914 to 1918. Harry Anslinger is going to meet this new group of people down at this place called The Hague in the Netherlands. And at The Hague in the Netherlands, what's Harry Anslinger going to do? He's going to make buddies with these people who are going to be the head of the World Health Organization. Now, I've talked about this on several occasions, but it can never be talked about enough. So I used to have a big, on my previous wall, I had a big layout of what the FDA did, and I can't remember all of that information. I believe the gentleman's name was the head of the FDA, this guy ran Stephanie, look this up for me. This guy ran the FDA from 1921 to 1926. He retired from the FDA for 4 or 5 years, and then he ran the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, again for another 20 years after that. What was his name? The guy who ran the FDA, I used to have him on my wall. I can't remember his name. But he was the head of the FDA for 4 or 5 years. He retires for a few years, and then he comes back and runs the FDA again for another 20 years. Brenner was his name, maybe. You guys can just look up the history of the head of the FDA, and you guys will be able to give me the name by the time this podcast is over. Okay? So then, now remember, all of the propaganda that's going to be created by Harry Anslinger and William Randolph Hearst and the TV industry is going to go for 20 years, where they're creating this propaganda. There it is, WD, there it is. No, but there was another guy, that's not his name. That's the assistant chief, that's not his name. I remember it, no, that's not his name, that's incorrect. I'm sorry, I'm telling you, you're incorrect about data that I know that I'm telling you to find, and that's the incorrect data. I have the years incorrect, forgive me. I'm incorrect in giving you what to look for. Just look up who the head of the FDA was, and there'll be a break in time, not the assistant, it's the head of the FDA. Maybe I gave you the wrong years, but he was the head of the FDA maybe in the teens, and then he retires for 4 or 5 years or 10 years. Then he comes back and runs the FDA again for another 10 or 20 years. So you guys can look that up. Protect Youth Against Dope, William Randolph Hearst, 1935. So now this is a very important caveat here. Here's a really important caveat that we have to understand. So Harry Anslinger has made it his life's mission to criminalize hemp so that it can't compete with the fossil fuel industry, so that it can't compete with big pharmaceuticals and with the energy industry. As a matter of fact, someone can tell me, I do have it pulled up on my computer here, how you doing? But I want you guys to remember that Henry Ford creates a car that runs completely on hemp fuel. Henry Ford creates an automobile that runs totally on hemp. I can look on my computer, I have it pulled up here, but I don't want to stop the lecture to look it up. You guys can look that up yourself. What year did Henry Ford create the car that runs completely on hemp fuel? That's something for you guys to understand. So now right here in 1961, if you guys are not familiar, and by the way, there is an absolute ton of information online about the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. Okay? The Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. That's right. Hearst creates a bunch of newspaper stuff that's all based on lies. So now at the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, what happened here in the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, this is where Harry Anslinger invites his friends from World War I, the people who started the World Health Organization, to come to Manhattan and give a speech. Now, who else is at the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs? The Philippines, Thailand, every single country that Harry can get to come to the United States for the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs is invited to Manhattan. And just so you know, Manhattan has always been Manhattan. And this is how you know the whole story of Christopher Columbus and the people who came here to colonize America. New York used to be called New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam was already colonized or already industrialized or already civilized, or I mean, whatever, any kind of word I can say can trigger someone, so I don't want to say the wrong word. But New York used to be called New Amsterdam. New York has always been this happening, swinging place. And so we took New York from New Amsterdam to New York. And so in 1961 here, what happened here is Harry Anslinger invites all these countries to come and what happened in 1961? What happened in 1945? We nuked Japan. That's what happened. We nuclearized Japan. We dropped the Hiroshima and Nagasaki on them. So this is very, very current in everybody's mind, because around the world, we filmed it. The United States military filmed the bombing of Japan. They filmed the nuclear bombs going off. And so when Harry Anslinger gets all these countries to come to New York for the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, he tells every single one of them, you will adopt American drug policies or we will bomb you. He pulls them in a little room, you know those dark, smoky rooms that they used to talk about back in the dark, smoky rooms? That was Harry Anslinger. I mean, maybe the term is even coined from him. I think it goes back a little further than him. But so Harry Anslinger gets all of these countries in a room, and he says to them, if you don't criminalize cannabis to the same levels that we do, remember what we did to Japan, we'll do it to you. And so he literally terrifies every country that comes to the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs to criminalize cannabis to the same level or beyond that America does, or you're going to face the repercussions of what the American military will do to your country. Harry Anslinger outright threatens dozens of countries and tells them, if you do not adopt our drug policies, you are an enemy of America, and you saw what we just did to Japan. Is that what you want to happen to you? And so what happens? Thailand, the Philippines, they then create a death sentence for having marijuana. And marijuana has this very pungent smell. And so now Harry Anslinger in the World Health Organization, right here, the World Health Organization gets up on the podium in New York City at the Waldorf Astoria in front of hundreds of different industrialized nations, and they say that smoking marijuana will turn your kid into an axe murderer. It'll turn your wife into a prostitute immediately. Your wife takes one hit of marijuana and she's going to become a prostitute for black guys. So racism is used to promote the criminalization of marijuana, but that is not why marijuana is criminalized. That's not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bursting your bubble. Is it racist? The means to create the criminalization? Yes. Is it meant for racism? No. Is it now used? Is civic core? So if you guys don't know what civic core is, does anybody not know what civic core is? When I say that name, civic core, do you know what civic core is? Can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me? Do you know what civic core is? Write those words down there, civic core. And once you guys pop civic core into Google, you'll know exactly what it means. So civic core. Now, when we talk about big industry in America, Walter Campbell, God bless you. God bless you. That's the name. That's the name right there. That's the name. He was head of the FDA from 1921 until 1924. He takes a 3-year break. Walter G. Campbell. I even know his middle name now, right? I did a long, deep analysis and research into Walter Campbell. I went down a rabbit hole for Walter Campbell for an entire day. I read everything I could read about Walter Campbell. And now that I remember what his looks like, what his picture looks like. I used to have a picture of him on my old wall, right? Walter Campbell. He was the head of the FDA. From 1921 until 1924, he retires for 3 years. He's the head of the FDA to 1927 to 1944. What's he doing from 1927 to 1944? He wants cannabis to be regulated by the FDA. That's what's going on. Walter Campbell. So did anybody figure out what civic corporation? So when we talk about big corporations being involved in big money, you have to talk about civic core now. And this is where the racism that Carlos Miller was talking about earlier today, it factors in. Now, this is where racism does factor in to marijuana being criminalized now. And civic core started when? 1982, with the criminalization, with the for-profit prison industry being created by Ronald Reagan. Here. Ronald Reagan here is going to create the for-profit prison industry, and here's the spike that really is going to begin. So you see it go here, right there, go up, and that's because Richard Nixon declares war on drugs. Okay, Walter Campbell. I'm going to indenture that name. Harry. They back up Harry Anslinger. And they say all the propaganda that's been created by William Randolph Hearst, all the propaganda that's been created by Harry Anslinger is repeated right here. It's repeated. Blah, blah, blah. It'll turn your kid into the racism they use to criminalize it is absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. So I just like the truth. Yeah, Nancy Reagan on that bulldozer. You guys do me a favor, reach up and touch that like button. Reach up there and hit that like button. If you would, just hit that little thumbs up button. Just reach up and touch that like button. Maybe it's down here for you guys. Just take your finger really quick, if you would, pretty please, with cherries and sugar on top, and just reach up and touch that like button for me. It's the little thing right up there. Just take your finger and touch the like button or the thumbs up button. Just touch that for me, if you would, pretty please. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I hate to ask for these petty things, but unfortunately, we're going to be targeted here. The more and more information that we disseminate out to you guys, the more we're going to be targeted. If anybody doesn't have the LaGuardia report, I'll send it to you. Don't worry about it. I'll send it to you. If anybody doesn't have any of my posters or my ebooks, I will send them to you. Don't think that you have to tip me or give me any money. You can have it for free. I'll send you everything that I make 100% for free, so you can learn the information. A lot of people who I sent out a dozen, 13 or 14 today to people. M-Star Media, I don't have your email address, or I would have sent it to you too. So please send me your email address, M-Star Media. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I have to get more and more used to this, because I'm going to run for the governor of California. If I don't run for the governor of California, I will run for an executive position of a state. Not a senator, not an assistant governor. I will run for the governor of a state. And once I get that executive power, I will create checks and balances on policing within my state. I guarantee it. I'm just above my 40s here, so I am not I'm not too old here. I'm just in the prime of my life. I still have 30 more years, God willing, someone doesn't kill me. I have 30, 40 years left. I'm not going to stop under any circumstances. Under any circumstances. T. Roy knows it. We don't stop under any circumstances. So, this single convention on narcotics, drugs, this World Health Organization demonization is the reason why we have Terry versus Ohio today. As you guys know, I talk about Terry versus Ohio all the time. Because the World Health Organization came in to the single convention on narcotic drugs, and because the World Health Organization, from a medical standpoint, said that marijuana would turn your wife into a prostitute, then what happened here is Kerr versus California in 1963. The police are then empowered using the exigent circumstances clause of Carroll versus the United States, that the people who have marijuana in there are narcotics dealers, and people could die if those cops don't seize that marijuana in the Kerr's apartment. You see, the Carroll versus the United States case in 1925, the exigent circumstances clause is then invoked in Kerr versus California because the World Health Organization says that marijuana turns your wife into a hooker. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding one bit. That it'll turn your kid into an axe murderer. It all ties together. Carroll goes into the World Health Organization, the demonization, creates Kerr. Kerr is the jurisprudence of Terry versus Ohio. Thank you, World Health Organization. I really trust you guys. I really trust everything you say, because the history of our country shows us with Walter Campbell and the FDA and the World Health Organization. When did America get fat? Anybody? When did America get this obese problem where everybody's grossly overweight? When did that happen? Did that happen? Did that happen with the FDA changing the food pyramid? Is that what happened? America got obese when the Food and Drug Administration created that food pyramid. Does everybody remember that food pyramid? Does everybody remember the food pyramid? Does everybody remember the food pyramid? So the America got grossly overweight when Kellogg's, Nabisco, General Mills, Quaker gave money to the FDA and said, you need to eat 4 to 6 small meals a day. Just snack throughout the day. Just take snacks throughout the day. And that was created by the Food and Drug Administration that was led by Walter Campbell. Now, Walter Campbell's going to retire in 1947. I believe that's what the year said. I'm pretty sure. And so Nancy Reagan was so why was Nancy Reagan a champion for private prisons? Because her friends invested in those private prisons. The stock that the private prisons create still benefit the Reagan's friends who invested in the for-profit prison industry. So then right here at the single convention on narcotic drugs, right here, the World Health Organization demonizes it, and then that creates Kerr versus California. And I'm going to post a video about Kerr versus California tonight. I have an interview with a cop that I did. I hope I still have that interview on my computer. And so so do you understand now? So essentially, I'll try to wrap this up here, and then I'll take any questions. Essentially, just so you guys know, the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911 creates the Harrison Act. The Harrison Act then creates the 1934 Uniform State Narcotic Act. The Uniform State Narcotic Act begins the open invitation for the propaganda to be created by William Randolph Hearst, Lamont DuPont, and Harry Anslinger. These gentlemen then get Andrew Mellon to write the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 doesn't really get teeth until the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, where the World Health Organization, Harry's friends from World War I, will then create this idea that marijuana turns your kid into a comatose axe murderer. And then that leads us to Kerr versus California, where the cops are empowered to just walk into the Kerr's house using common law, procedural law. That's what Kerr versus California is based on, common law, not substantive law. The common law of Kerr versus California is then invoked, and the jurisprudence of Terry versus Ohio is based on Kerr versus California. Kerr versus California is based on 1925 Carroll, which is the exigent circumstances clause, where there's going to be a loss of life because the Kerrs are marijuana dealers. The Kerrs are marijuana dealers, and people could die if the marijuana gets out. Is that because of racism or is that because of money? Who profits? And then I got to give you the quote from the World Health Organization in 1961. Standing on the podium in Manhattan, Harry Anslinger in the front row, the World Health Organization says that every single cannabis hemp plant in America should be eradicated within 25 years of today. 25 years, every single marijuana plant should be eradicated from Earth. They said that in 1961. That would mean by 1985, every single marijuana plant on Earth should be eradicated from the soil. It should be ripped up and burned. This is the recommendation of the World Health Organization in 1961. At least half the people who are right here on this live right now smoke marijuana. At least half the people in this room right now have a friend or know someone who smokes marijuana, at least half. Okay? Okay. I'll take any questions you guys have. Let me do another promo. Let me get another promo going. If you guys haven't picked up my digital poster or my ebook, please go buy my digital poster or my ebook. If you can afford it, it's on DeleteLawZ.com, DeleteLawZ.com with a Z. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. If you can't afford the ebook or the digital poster, I will give it to you for free simply by contacting me. I will send you my ebook and my digital poster for free if you just contact me. If you can afford to buy it, please support what we're doing because we don't ever stop until this is done, until we end the war on drugs and we overturn Terry versus Ohio. And then we go back and we get Brinegar, we get Kerr, and we get Carroll. So we start here with Terry. We start with Terry versus Ohio. And then we start with Terry because Terry then gives us a foothold to overturn the war on drugs. And this ends 90% of qualified immunity. 90% of cops' interaction ends by overturning Terry, 90%. And then we go back and we overturn Kerr versus California. And then we overturn Brinegar versus the United States. And then we go back and we overturn Carroll versus the United States, 1925. 1925, okay? I appreciate your support so much, Jack. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So here's where you guys can get my digital poster and my ebook here. You can also get a hard copy poster. People are buying the hard copy posters. And just so you guys know, my profit margin on those hard copy posters is $20. That's how much money I make. The print shop takes a nice chunk of money. The shipping takes a nice chunk of money. And the suggested pricing for my posters for the $99 version is $135. The suggested pricing for the laminated poster is $179. And I told the guy at the office, I said, I don't want that. I don't need to make 50 bucks. I want to make 20. So I make $20 per poster that you guys buy from me, no matter which poster you buy. Just so you know, the digital poster is at $25. T-Roy has a $5 off coupon that people are using. And so please take advantage of that $5 off coupon because it's a digital poster. And if you don't have the 20 or 25, just contact me. I'll send it to you for free and I'm happy to do it. Especially then if you have the money to go print it out and show this to kids, that's the real goal. That's the real goal. And so these are my cup of coffee funds here. If you guys want to buy me a cup of coffee, I'd be so grateful. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support so much. It means so much to me. You have no idea. When I wake up in the morning and there's $18 in my Venmo account or $18 on my Cash App or 50 bucks, man, I'll tell you what, I am absolutely humbled and blown away that there's so many people who give a shoot about changing this, And I'm not sure if you guys noticed or not, but I'm really not kidding. I'm not joking. We don't ever stop. Anybody who's with me, we don't ever stop. I don't care what happens. I don't care who calls me names. I don't care how many people death threat me. I don't give a shit. Shoot what you say. Second bad word today. Dang it. I get emotional, I get emotional. So, okay. I'm just reading comments here for a few minutes just to take away, to get out of my own head and just talk about Agent right here. I do have a video on here on this channel that talks about the process to overturn Terry. So you guys can watch that video and then get back to me on that. There's a video on here. There's the $5 promo from T-Roy. It's T-Roy promo or also to overturn Terry. You put that right into the thing. Someone had a hard time buying my poster today. They just sent me a Cash App and I sent them everything. So anything else? Agent, we can get more into that as we go. And by the way, we're going to need help from both the left and the right. We're going to need help from the left and the right to get this done, Okay. Thank you, Right On. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you. I'm doing my best, Jason. I'm doing my best to stop cursing, man. I'm doing my best. I said the SHIT word twice during this. Once and a half. I caught myself. There's LaGuardia report there. There's a PDF in right there. God dang it, I can't get it to. There it is. Stephanie just put the PDF in. She just put it in. So you guys are more than welcome to get it from there. I put pages on mine, so you're welcome to get my version. I absolutely don't mind. I sit in front of the computer for hours a day. I set up my system, guys. I set up my system. There's my computer system right over there. I work constantly. You see the computer over there? I set it up right over there. I just sit at that little table right there. And tonight I'll get the Izzo interview ready to go tomorrow. Hopefully you guys can take a look at that. Yeah, hey, Thought Criminal. Yeah, I know that. 9/11 is my birthday, by the way. I was born on 9/11. I was born on September 11th. And so, yeah, it hurts. It hurts that 9/11 happened. Whether you like it or not, people are all, So then I said earlier I was going to go into tomorrow. The talk is going to be about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the social contract. Tomorrow's lecture is going to be about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the social contract, and he calls it bourgeois. Have you guys ever heard of the term? Oh, don't be so bourgeois. Have you guys heard that before? And so I'm not going to get into that right now, but I'm just going to answer some questions. So bourgeois, just so you know, is the public and personal persona, and it goes into narcissism, and it goes into the idea. I'm going to do this lecture tomorrow. My Facebook link is, if you want to, T-Roy, put it in. It's Chille DeCastro X. ChilleDe Castro, the letter X. Facebook.com/Chille DeCastro, ChilleDecastro, letter X. That is my Facebook link. I add everybody to Facebook. I read every single comment that I possibly can. Obviously, I'm getting thousands and thousands of comments now because the YouTube community has reached out and helped me out so much. Accountability for All, Brian, Here's the Deal, Disorderly Product News, ASD Docs, an incredible channel. What about a 10 to 20 minute produced video on marijuana to share everywhere? There's my Facebook link right there, you guys, if you want to put that in. There's my Facebook link. You guys feel free to add me to Facebook. My Instagram account is a great way to reach me. It's just my name, chilledecastro _2022. So this is actually my mom's garage. My mom had a stroke. And so I've been here trying to help my mom recover and trying to put in a lot of time with my mom. Once you have a stroke, it's a little scary. It's at chilledecastro _2022, all one word, T-Roy, at chilledecastro _2022. You're welcome. Anybody have any questions that I didn't answer for you guys tonight? Is there anything that you want to talk about that I didn't get to? Because I'm coming up on 90 minutes. It seems like I went from an hour when I started off doing YouTube videos to there's the link for Instagram. Please add me on Instagram. If you want me to follow you, I will follow you right back. I don't have any of that stuck up nonsense when it comes to social media. I take it very personally when my friends don't follow me. I take it very personally. I can't help it. I take it very personally that my friends don't follow me on Instagram. It really hurts my feelings. It really does. It hurts my feelings. It does. I wish I could say that it doesn't, but it sure does. It sure does. I need a swear jar. That's so funny. Thank you. I appreciate that, McDonald. Until I run for executive and until we create checks and balances on policing, we haven't accomplished anything. Until we overturn Terry, we're just getting our feet wet here. Remember, I've only been in front of the camera for 6 months, people. 6 months I've been talking in front of the camera for 6 months. For 6 months. And look at the traction that we're creating here as a unit, as a group. Oh, James Freeman, incredible. I haven't ever personally met or spoken to James Freeman, but he's literally one of my favorite auditors. Badassou, Batasou, Badassou, Philip Turner, in my opinion, is the #1 auditor in America because he got legislation passed. Badassou is his name. And then if you guys want to go to Jeff Lloyd, his name is J. Lloyd Sold, the letter J, LLOYD, SOLD on Instagram, J. Lloyd Sold on Instagram. That was my original partner, my investor who allowed me to build this wall. He had no idea what he's doing. He gave me the money to build this wall, and I built this from Jeff Lloyd's money. Go to J. Lloyd Sold on Instagram, send him a direct message and tell him that I said thank you, and thank him because you and I would not have met if Jeff Lloyd, a conservative, Republican, 2-time Trump voter. I do not support Trump. Sorry, guys, if you're Trump supporters. He could have gone on camera just like me and said, get away from the Capitol, and he didn't. So he lost my support. I do not support Trump any longer. And so I never voted for him anyway. But Jeff Lloyd, J. Lloyd Sold, that is the guy who funded me to build this wall for a year. He gave me money to build this, and he didn't know what I was building. J. Lloyd Sold on Instagram. Go by his Instagram and tell him I said thank you, and thank him for giving this opportunity to come together and create this coalition of people who is going to be here till the very end. I will be here until the end. I'm not going to do anything else with my life. This is my life's mission. I may have to break off to take the California State Bar next year, but that's only so that I have qualifications for people who are like, oh, well, who's he? Well, I passed the state bar without going to law school. That's who I am. Who are you? Right? So that's why I'm going to pass the California State Bar. That's why I'm going to take the state bar exam. James Freeman, man, Ali Baba, James Freeman. Auditing America with Josh Abram. Thank you, Josh. Shout out to you too. Shout out, I knew I was forgetting one. Batasau, that's exactly correct. Batasau is incredible, guys, incredible. I've been associated with him peripherally since 2007, 2008, and Batasau, Philip Turner, is the greatest. He got legislation passed. And as you guys know, I'm all about passing legislation. I'm all about passing legislation, big time. I'm about passing that legislation. Okay, we're 93 minutes. Real News Network. Yeah, I've never met them. Tell Real News Network I'd like to meet them. I would love to meet Real News Network. I'm a big fan of their work. I like what they do. Accountability for All. That's the one. Not Accountability for America. Accountability for All. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I want to I get that right. The guy who called and interviewed me the other day, Josh Abrams, he's Accountability for All. So thanks for correcting me on that. I said Accountability for America. I said the wrong YouTube channel. I'm so sorry, Josh. So yeah, okay. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Hit my Instagram, hit my Facebook. Remember, if you don't have the money for a poster or an ebook, I'll give it to you for free. Don't wait. Don't wait. Get the information now. Someone told me 2 weeks ago, they were like, hey, man, I don't have the money for the ebook or the poster, but can I get it? I said, absolutely, dude. I sent it to him right away. I woke up yesterday. The guy had Venmo'd me money. I woke up yesterday and the guy had Venmo. I forgot all about that I'd given the guy a free poster. And he sent me some money yesterday and said, hey, dude, I got your poster. I got your ebook. I want to say thank you. Here's some money. I told you when I got paid, I'd give you some money. I didn't even remember. As soon as someone tells me they want my material, I just send that to them. No delay. No delay. No delay. I do digitally, Bob. I send to Canada. I also ship to Canada as well. If you want a hard copy poster, send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram, and I will buy your poster, and then I'll figure out the shipping cost, and I'll send you the shipping cost to Canada. Yeah, 100%. I ship to Canada. I've shipped to Germany. I've shipped to France. I've shipped to England. I've shipped to every country around the world. Anybody who wants the material, if you'll pay for the shipping, I will ship you the materials. No problem. Absolutely no problem. And then I got to fill out a bunch of stuff. It takes me about 5 minutes at the post office. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? You know, I'm in Arizona now, my friend. I'm in Arizona right now. I'm in Arizona right this second. I'm in Arizona right this minute. Hey, from Scotland. How you guys doing from Scotland? Thanks for coming by. Okay. All right, guys. You know how to reach me. You know how to get a hold of me. Thank you guys so much for the support. I do appreciate your time this evening. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And we don't stop. We do not stop. This group of people, we don't stop until we overturn Terry versus. I have 2 smalls left. Someone bought one of the 3 smalls today. I have 2 small t-shirts left. I have 2 small and this shirt might look like it's small, but those are just small. This is actually a medium, but it just shrunk over I haven't replaced my own t-shirt, so I actually got to replace this with a larger size now because I'm getting big, right? So, but I have 2 smalls left in stock. I have 2 smalls. I have 2 small overturned Terry lefts in stock, so please contact me if you guys want. I have 2 smalls. As soon as these last 2 are sold, I'll do another batch. I'll do another batch of t-shirts. I actually have them in my van, so I will do another batch of t-shirts as soon as the last 2 smalls sell. Yeah, I do have the larges in my van. I do have the large sizes in my van, so I will do that. Okay, cool, guys. It's a small thing to a giant. Can't stop, won't stop. I won't stop. All right, I'll get out of here. Thanks for letting me take your time tonight. Remember, the mantra is overturn Terry. That's the only thing that should be said at protest. You shouldn't say anything else. That should be your focus. That should be your drive. That should be your mission. And it's your mission, not mine. I'm just a regular dude who showed you where to look. All right, guys. God bless you. God bless America, and I'll see you guys on the next live. It'll be tomorrow night, and we'll be talking about Jean-Jacques Rousseau's social contract tomorrow. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's social contract tomorrow. Overturn Terry. All right, later, guys.